Do you believe that only modern engineers, armed with colossal steel cranes, are capable of erecting immense metropolises? Then how do you explain the architecture of ancient peoples who, without a single motor, made 80-ton stone statues walk? Today, we embark on a journey to explore humanity's most impossible constructions. You will see a temple carved entirely within a monolithic rock and an abandoned city built completely of stone in the middle of the ocean. And by the end, you'll uncover the secret of an ancient construction site where workers manually moved 1,000-ton slabs. Archaeologists have debated these sites for decades, but today, we will attempt to separate the mysticism from the actual facts. Prepare yourself, because what you are about to discover may completely transform your understanding of humanity's past. In 1532, Spanish conquistadors entered the Inca Empire's capital, Cusco, nestled high in the Andes. What they witnessed there left them stunned. Perched on a hill stood the fortress of Saksaywaman, composed of 3 tiers of massive, zigzagging walls. These were not mere brick structures. The walls consisted of colossal granite blocks, some weighing over 200 tons. To grasp the scale, 200 tons is the approximate weight of a large passenger aircraft with a full fuel tank. But it wasn't primarily the size that unnerved the Spanish. The stones, of irregular polygonal shapes, were fitted together so precisely that it was impossible to slide even a thin knife blade between them. These walls contained not a single gram of binding mortar. When earthquakes struck the region, Spanish churches crumbled to dust, while the Inca walls merely swayed slightly in place and gently returned to their original position. The internet quickly filled with incredible theories. Proponents of alternative history wrote that the stones of Saksaywaman appeared as if they had been softened like marshmallows over a fire, and then simply molded together. Legends emerged of a mysterious sap from rare tropical plants, rumored to transform solid rock into liquid mud. Other researchers confidently declared that plasma cutters and powerful alien technology must have been involved. By their logic, an ordinary human with a copper chisel was physically incapable of such intricate precision on such gigantic scales. However, reality proved far more impressive than alien myths. Inca architects utilized a method of spatial copying that scientists call scribing. Imagine a dentist making a precise mold of your tooth. The Incas did the same, but with multi-ton boulders. They suspended the upper stone above the lower one using sturdy wooden scaffolding. Then, with the aid of plumb bobs, they transferred the complex relief of the lower stone onto the upper block. After this, the scaffolding was lowered, and hundreds of workers monotonously chipped away excess material using harder river stones. They didn't cut the granite, they methodically abraded it. Water, sand, and infinite patience did their work. The Incas had no wheel and no iron tools, but they possessed unlimited human resources and absolute engineering discipline. The Incas conquered gravity high in the mountains, assembling stones like a giant game of Tetris. But on the other side of the world, in India, ancient masters went even further. They didn't build a monument from individual stones. They transformed the very cliff into a temple, choosing a method that defies all construction logic. In the Indian state of Maharashtra lies the Ellora Caves complex, and the main jewel of this site is the Kailasa Temple. When European explorers first studied it in detail, they experienced cognitive dissonance. This temple is twice the size of the famous Parthenon in Athens. It is adorned with hundreds of intricate sculptures of elephants, gods, and mythical creatures. But the most mind-blowing detail is that this temple wasn't built at all. It wasn't assembled from blocks. The artisans simply found an enormous, solid basalt mountain and began carving the temple strictly from top to bottom. They removed approximately 200,000 tons of solid rock to liberate the building hidden within. One wrong move of the chisel, one crack in a load-bearing column, and the entire decades-long project would have been hopelessly ruined. Of course, stories immediately circulated online about ancient Indians possessing vibrational technologies. People on forums seriously discussed giant sound cannons that caused stone to crumble into dust from specific frequencies. Others claimed that a gigantic machine descended from the sky, simply vaporizing the excess rock with a laser in a few days. After all, carving such magnificence with a simple chisel in a monolithic rock seems like an impossible task even for modern CNC machines. The answer lay in a brilliant understanding of rock physics. Ancient stonemasons did not blindly chip away at the rock. They exploited natural microfissures in the basalt. Their main secret weapon was not lasers but water and dry wood. Builders drove dry wooden wedges into the cracks, then thoroughly soaked them with water. The wood swelled and, with tremendous force, pushed the stone apart from within. This acted like a natural hydraulic jack. The stone split precisely along the intended line. By working from top to bottom, they didn't need scaffolding. The mountain itself served as their support. They carefully removed layer after layer, leaving untouched the sections that would later become elegant columns and statues. Using the laws of physics to break stone is clever. But what about making multi-ton stone blocks walk by themselves across the land? This unsettling enigma confronted sailors when they discovered the most isolated island on the planet, in the Pacific Ocean. A tiny speck of land, thousands of kilometers from the nearest continent. When Dutch navigators landed on Easter Island in the 18th century, they couldn't believe their eyes. Hundreds of giant stone moai statues stood along the coast, their empty eye sockets gazing inland. The largest statues weighed up to 80 tons and reached the height of a 10-meter house. But there wasn't a single large tree on the island to make rollers. There were no strong ropes, no draft animals. The quarry where the idols were carved was located in a volcanic crater, many kilometers from the coast. For decades, scientists puzzled over how a small group of isolated islanders managed to drag these monsters across rugged terrain. Local legends offered a chilling answer. The statues walked themselves. Elders spoke of great chiefs possessing mana, a mystical energy that brought the stone to life at night. The idols supposedly rose and slowly walked to their pedestals. Naturally, for modern conspiracy theorists, this became perfect confirmation of anti-gravity technology. If the natives said the stones levitated, then they must have been aided by visitors from other planets with gravity beams. But archaeologists conducted a series of experiments and proved that local legends were not a metaphor, but a technical instruction. The statues truly walked. The secret lay in their shape. The moai's center of gravity is subtly shifted, much like a modern refrigerator. If you've ever tried to move a heavy refrigerator, you know you don't need to carry it. You need to rock it from corner to corner. The ancient Polynesians tied strong ropes, woven from local grasses, to the statues' heads. 3 groups of people stood on different sides. One team pulled left, the second right, and the third provided support from behind. Swaying, the multi-ton giant took step after step, literally walking along the dusty roads. It was a triumph of balance and teamwork. Moving heavy objects on land is difficult. But what if you need to build an entire city, not on land, but directly on water? And to do so using stones, each weighing as much as a loaded school bus. In the western Pacific Ocean, off the coast of Micronesia, lies a place often called the 8th wonder of the world. This is Nan Madol, an abandoned city on water. It consists of 92 artificial islets, separated by a network of canals. The walls of this city are constructed from colossal basalt columns. These stone logs are perfectly straight, often hexagonal, and weigh up to 50 tons each. The total weight of the stones used to build the city exceeds 250 million tons. This is more than the Great Pyramid of Giza. But here, there are no sand dunes for sleds. All around are only the ocean, coral reefs, and dense mangrove thickets. How did people without machines not only transport these columns, but also stack them into walls 15 meters high directly in the water? Local folklore attributes the construction of Nan Madol to 2 magician brothers who arrived on flying boats and, using spells, made the stones fly through the air. Seekers of mysticism went even further. They declared Nan Madol the remnants of the continent of Lemuria, an ancient, highly advanced civilization that sank millennia ago. In their version, these perfectly straight basalt columns were the work of ancient industrial machines that sliced stone like giant sausages. In reality, the secret of Nan Madol lies in the ingenious use of the forces of nature itself: fire, water, and the moon. The perfectly straight basalt columns were not carved. Basalt of volcanic origin, as it cools, often naturally cracks into regular hexagons. The builders only needed to break them off the rock. For this, they used thermal shock. They lit powerful fires along the cracks, heating the stone, and then abruptly poured cold water on it. From the sharp temperature difference, the rock cracked precisely along a straight line. And the problem of transportation was solved by the moon. The islanders floated sturdy wooden rafts under the stones during low tide. When the powerful high tide began, the water itself lifted the raft along with its 50-ton cargo, and it was calmly towed to the construction site by water. Taming the ocean tides is the mark of true masters. But while some built cities on water, others decided to hide from the world so deeply that they remained undiscovered for millennia. Turkey, 1963. An ordinary resident of the Cappadocia region began renovations in his home. He broke down an old wall in his basement and suddenly saw a tunnel disappearing into the darkness. Following it, he made a discovery that astounded the entire scientific world. Beneath his house was not just a basement, but Derinkuyu, a gigantic underground metropolis. It descends an incredible 18 levels, reaching a depth of almost 80 meters. This was a true underground hive, capable of accommodating 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food supplies, wineries, and even schools. And all of it was excavated by hand. Thousands of cubic meters of rock were brought to the surface so discreetly that enemies above suspected nothing. But it wasn't just the scale that was astonishing, but the incredible thoughtfulness of every detail. On the upper levels, ancient engineers placed stables and corrals for livestock. This was done for a reason. Firstly, animals did not need to descend steep and narrow staircases deep underground. Secondly, their bodies served as living organic batteries, emitting a huge amount of heat that warmed the upper levels during cold winters. The deeper you descended, the more complex the infrastructure became. There were bakeries, weapons workshops, storage facilities, chapels, and even schools with separate stone benches for lessons. And in case of enemy invasion, each level could be completely sealed off. For this, giant circular stone doors, shaped like millstones and weighing 500 kilograms each, were used. A small hole was made in the center of the stone. Through it, defenders could safely observe the enemy and attack them with spears. This monolithic door was absolutely impossible to move or destroy from the outside. It could only be gently rolled back from the inside using special wooden levers. Imagine the level of tension of those people who had to live for long months in this utter cramped darkness, illuminating their path only with tiny oil lamps made of baked clay, while enemy armies raged above. Life underground required immense endurance. The sheer size of Derinkuyu is so overwhelming that conspiracy theorists immediately put forward the theory of an ancient nuclear war. Why else would people burrow so deep, if not to hide from radiation or an attack from the sky? Rumors circulated about a race of dwarves or reptilians for whom life underground was a natural environment. It was said that ordinary people would suffocate from the smoke of their own torches at such a depth within a couple of days. But the truth turned out to be tied to the unique geology of this region. The land of Cappadocia consists of volcanic tuff. This is an incredibly amazing material. As long as it is deep underground and contains moisture, it is soft, like dense sand. Ancient builders could dig it with wooden shovels, almost effortlessly, moving deeper. But as soon as the tuff reacts with oxygen, it rapidly dries and becomes hard as concrete. The excavated walls cemented themselves, and the breathing problem was solved by an ingenious ventilation system. The builders dug deep vertical shafts down to the groundwater. The temperature difference between the cold bottom and the warm top created a powerful draft that naturally drew fresh air to the lowest levels. No magic, just a perfect understanding of aerodynamics. Hiding underground is a smart survival strategy. But those who built our last object didn't want to hide. They wanted to reach for the heavens. And for this, they moved the heaviest blocks in human history. In Lebanon, amidst the ruins of the ancient city of Baalbek, lie stones that continue to baffle modern engineers. At the base of the Temple of Jupiter are 3 megaliths known as the Trilithon. Each of these stone blocks weighs approximately 800 tons. They are raised to a height of 7 meters and fitted together with unsettling precision. And in a nearby quarry, the so-called Southern Stone remains, weighing over 1,000 tons. This is the mass of 3 fully loaded subway trains. Moving such a weight today is an extremely complex engineering operation, requiring supercomputer calculations. How did people in ancient times accomplish this, when the most powerful engine was the muscle of a human or an ox? Baalbek became the main pilgrimage site for those who believe in paleocontact. A popular theory suggests that this massive stone platform was a launch pad for ancient spacecraft, and the gigantic blocks served as protection against the jet exhaust of engines. Others assert that the temple was built by the Nephilim, 3-meter giants from ancient myths, for whom lifting 1,000 tons was like lifting a sack of potatoes. However, Roman engineers were the greatest logisticians of their time. They possessed no magic, but they knew the secrets of mechanics. The Romans used giant polyspastos, complex systems of winches and blocks. By combining several such enormous wooden cranes, they could multiply traction force many times over. To move 800-ton blocks from the quarry to the construction site, They constructed colossal earthen ramps with a minimal incline. The stones were placed on wooden sleds, under which round rollers were laid. Thousands of slaves pulled thick ropes, and special overseers synchronized their movements with a clear rhythm. A block could crawl at a speed of only a few centimeters per day, but in antiquity, time flowed differently. They didn't have excavators, but they had decades to complete a task. We have explored everything: a temple carved from a solid mountain, statues walking across an island, basalt castles on water, underground bunkers spanning dozens of levels, and stone blocks the size of a mansion. We tend to consider ourselves the pinnacle of technological evolution simply because we have smartphones, the internet, and cars. We imagine that people of the past were naive and primitive, but these 6 structures prove otherwise. The intellect of ancient engineers was in no way inferior to ours. They simply used different tools. Where we engage a powerful engine, they utilized gravity, water, temperature, and geometry. The world of the past is far more complex and interesting than any conspiracy theory, and when we look at these impossible ancient stones, we see not alien intervention or magic, we see the incredible, boundless power of the human mind, capable of overcoming any laws of nature